Now let's begin. Victor Vincent stood in the sterile hallway of the medical center, his father's watch heavy on his wrist. 3 weeks had passed since Hugh Vincent's funeral, 3 weeks since the heart attack that took him at 62. The watch was all Victor had left of the man who'd taught him that a handshake meant something, that your word was your bond, that family came first. Always. The genetic screening had been his sister's idea. Dad went young, Vic, she'd said at the wake. You've got twins to think about. Just get tested. Know what you're dealing with. Practical advice. Victor appreciated practical. He'd built his career on practical. 20 years as a restoration architect, bringing century-old buildings back from the edge of collapse. You learned to see what others missed, the hidden structural damage, the rot beneath fresh paint, the lies people told themselves about foundations that would never hold. His firm, Vincent and Associates, had a reputation for finding the truth in old buildings, no matter how ugly that truth might be. At 43, Victor had everything a man could want. Miranda, his wife of 17 years, beautiful and sharp-tongued in the way that kept him interested. The twins, Jasmine and Luke, 15 and perfect in that imperfect way teenagers were. A Craftsman Colonial in Westchester they'd restored together, room by room. His name on buildings across 3 states. The door to Dr. Alberto Goodman's office opened. The geneticist was younger than Victor expected, maybe 35, with the careful neutral expression doctors wore when the news was bad. Mr. Vincent, please come in. Victor had expected talk of cholesterol markers, hereditary heart conditions, maybe some lifestyle changes. He hadn't expected Dr. Goodman to close the door and lock it. Hadn't expected the man to sit across from him and fold his hands like a priest preparing for confession. I need to show you something, Dr. Goodman said. And I want you to know that I've triple-checked these results. Had 2 colleagues verify them independently. The first flutter of unease hit Victor's chest. That sounds ominous. Mr. Vincent, your genetic screening revealed several markers we need to discuss, but there's something else. Dr. Goodman turned his monitor around. Charts, graphs, sequences of letters that meant nothing to Victor. Based on your DNA profile, specifically certain chromosomal markers and genetic mutations you carry, it's medically impossible for you to have fathered biological children. The words hung in the air like smoke. Victor heard them, understood the individual syllables, but couldn't make them connect to meaning. I have twins, he said. Jasmine and Luke. They're 15. I understand this is. I was there. In the delivery room. I cut Luke's umbilical cord. I held Jasmine 3 minutes after she was born. Victor's voice was steady, but his hands had started to shake. Are you telling me? I'm telling you that biologically, genetically, you cannot be their father. I'm sorry. The office felt too small. Victor stood, paced to the window overlooking the parking lot. His truck sat 3 rows back, the company logo on the side, Vincent and Associates. Restoring yesterday, building tomorrow. How many times had Luke asked to drive that truck? How many job sites had Jasmine visited, hard hat on her head, asking questions about load-bearing walls and foundation depths? Show me, Victor said. Show me exactly what you're talking about. Dr. Goodman walked him through it. Klinefelter syndrome markers. Genetic mutations that rendered him sterile. Numbers and science that couldn't be argued with, couldn't be negotiated. The kind of truth that broke a man's spine. There's no possibility of error. I had Dr. Alvarez and Dr. McMahon both review the sequencing independently. They reached the same conclusion. I'm sorry, Mr. Vincent. I know this isn't what you came here to learn. Victor pulled out his phone. His wallpaper showed Jasmine and Luke at their birthday party last month. Chocolate cake smeared on Luke's face, Jasmine's arm around her brother. His children. His DNA or not, they were his children. The phone buzzed in his hand. Jasmine's name on the screen. I need to take this, Victor said. Dr. Goodman nodded, stepped outside to give him privacy. Hey, princess, Victor said, forcing normalcy into his voice. Daddy. Jasmine's voice was small, terrified. Nothing like his sharp, confident daughter. Daddy, you need to come home right now. What's wrong? Are you hurt? There's a man here. With lawyers. He says, her voice broke. He says we're his blood. That he's our biological father. Daddy, Mom is saying it's true. She's saying we need to pack. That we're going to live with him. The floor dropped out from under Victor. The genetic test. This phone call. Not coincidence. Not possible. Put your mother on the phone. She won't talk to you. The lawyers said not to. Daddy, I don't understand what's happening. Luke locked himself in his room. Please come home. I'm 20 minutes away. Don't pack anything. Don't go anywhere. You hear me? I'm coming. He hung up, grabbed his jacket. Dr. Goodman was waiting in the hallway. Mr. Vincent. I need a copy of those results. Everything. Now. 5 minutes later, Victor was in his truck, manila envelope on the passenger's seat, driving like the devil was chasing him. Maybe the devil was. Or maybe he'd been living with the devil for 17 years and just hadn't known it. The Colonial looked the same as it had that morning. Same red door Victor had stripped and refinished himself. Same oak tree in the front yard where he'd hung a tire swing when the twins were 6. Same window boxes Miranda planted with geraniums every spring. Everything the same. Everything different. 2 cars he didn't recognize sat in the driveway. A black Mercedes sedan and a gray Lexus. Lawyer cars. Money cars. Victor walked through his front door into his living room and found his world had already been carved up without him. Miranda stood by the fireplace, arms crossed. Still beautiful at 41, auburn hair pulled back, wearing the blue dress he'd bought her for their anniversary. 2 men in suits flanked her, lawyers, obviously. And on the couch, looking exactly like Luke except 28 years older, sat a man Victor had never seen before. Shane Peters. It had to be. The biological father. He had Luke's green eyes, his broad shoulders, the same cowlick that made his dark hair stick up on the left side. The resemblance was undeniable, devastating. Victor, Miranda said. No emotion in her voice. Like she was greeting a stranger. What the hell is going on in my house? One of the lawyers stepped forward. Gerald Lindsay, according to the business card he offered. Victor didn't take it. Mr. Vincent, I represent Mr. Shane Peters. We're here to discuss custody arrangements for Jasmine and Luke Peters. Their last name is Vincent. Not for much longer, Shane said. He had a low voice, confident. The voice of a man who thought he'd already won. They're my kids, Vincent. My blood. Time they knew their real father. Victor looked at Miranda. 17 years of marriage, and he was looking at a stranger. Is it true? She wouldn't meet his eyes. It's complicated. Is it true? Yes. Barely a whisper. The room tilted. Victor grabbed the back of the nearest chair. We have DNA tests, Gerald Lindsay continued, pulling papers from his briefcase. Court-ordered paternity results proving Mr. Peters is the biological father. We're prepared to file for full custody based on fraud and get out of my house. Mr. Vincent, I understand you're upset, but I said get out. Victor's voice was quiet, deadly. The voice that made subcontractors nervous when they tried to cut corners. All of you. Now, we're not going anywhere until we've worked out an arrangement, Shane said, standing. He was taller than Victor by 2 inches. I've missed 15 years with my kids. That ends today. Your kids. Victor moved toward him. You have 3 seconds to get out before I throw you out. Dad. Jasmine appeared at the top of the stairs, Luke behind her. Both twins looked terrified. Jasmine ran down, positioned herself between Victor and Shane. Dad, please. Don't. Victor looked at his daughter. She had Miranda's auburn hair, Miranda's sharp cheekbones. But her eyes, green, like Shane's. Like Luke's. How had he never noticed? It's okay, princess. These people are leaving. Mr. Vincent, we have a court order, Gerald Lindsay said, producing another document. Temporary custody has been granted to Mr. Peters, pending a full hearing. The children are to come with us today. Over my dead body. Dad, Luke's voice from the stairs. Is it true? Are we not yours? The question gutted him. Victor turned to his son. Not his son. His mind screamed, not your blood, and saw fear in those green eyes. Fear and confusion and 15 years of trust crumbling. You're mine, Victor said. Genetics don't change that. Actually, they do, Shane said. Legally, financially, every way that matters. They're my children. Miranda made a mistake 17 years ago, but we're correcting it now. A mistake. Victor turned on Miranda. 17 years. You've lied to me for 17 years. I tried to tell you, Miranda said, but her voice was weak, unconvincing. So many times. But you were so happy, and the twins needed a father, and you were convenient, Shane finished. Good job, nice house, stable. Everything Miranda needed while I got my life together. But I'm here now. I'm ready to be their father. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. This wasn't spontaneous. This was planned. Coordinated. Miranda's behavior the last few months, the late nights, the whispered phone calls, the distance between them. He'd thought it was stress from her job at the gallery. He'd been a fool. How long? Victor asked Miranda. How long have you two been planning this? She didn't answer. 6 months, Shane said, grinning. Since I got the inheritance. Turns out I'm worth about 40 million now. Funny how that changes things, isn't it? Suddenly Miranda remembers she has my kids. Suddenly she wants to make things right. Money. Of course. It always came down to money. The children need to pack their essentials, Gerald Lindsay said. We have rooms prepared at Mr. Peters's estate. Jasmine, Luke, if you'll please. We're not going anywhere, Luke said. He came down the stairs, stood next to Jasmine, next to Victor. I don't care what some test says. This is our dad. This is our home. Luke, honey, please, Miranda started. Don't. Luke's voice cracked. Don't honey me. You lied. To all of us. For our entire lives. We can do this the easy way or the hard way, Shane said. But you're coming with me. Today. Victor put a hand on each twin's shoulder. Nobody's going anywhere. Miranda, you want a divorce? Fine. We'll get a divorce. But my children stay with me. They're not your children, Shane said. I've raised them, fed them, taught them to ride bikes and drive cars, sat up with them when they were sick. That makes them mine in every way that matters. Not legally, Gerald Lindsay interjected. Mr. Vincent, I sympathize with your position, but the law is clear. Biological parents have rights that supersede. Then we'll go to court. We'll fight this. But today, right now, they're staying here. You'll lose, Shane said. You know you'll lose. Save yourself the legal fees, Vincent. They're my blood. The courts will side with me. Then let them. But until a judge tells me otherwise, this is still my house, and these are still my children, and you're still trespassing. For a moment, Victor thought Shane might take a swing at him. The man's fists clenched, his jaw tightened. But Gerald Lindsay put a hand on his arm. We'll file the paperwork tomorrow, the lawyer said. Court date within the week. Mr. Vincent, I'd advise you to get legal representation. This will be expensive and ultimately futile, but that's your choice. They left. Shane cast one last look at the twins. See you soon, kids. We've got a lot of catching up to do. The door closed. Victor waited until he heard the cars pull away before his legs gave out. He sat on the couch, the same couch where he'd read bedtime stories, where the family watched movies on Friday nights, where Jasmine had announced she wanted to study architecture like her dad. Like her dad. Except he wasn't. Not really. Miranda stood by the fireplace, silent. How could you? Victor's voice was hollow. It just happened. Shane and I, we dated in college. Then I met you, and you were everything he wasn't. Responsible. Stable. Good. But Shane showed up at our engagement party, and she stopped. It was one night. One mistake. 17 years of lying isn't one mistake. It's a choice you made every single day. I know. God, Victor, I know. But I didn't know they were his. Not for sure. Not until Shane had them tested. When, 3 months ago, he tracked me down, said he wanted to know if he had any kids. I didn't think. I thought they were yours. I really did. Lies. Everything was lies. And when you found out, Miranda's face hardened. He's worth 40 million, Victor. The twins could have everything. The best schools, opportunities we could never. So you sold them. I'm securing their future. You're destroying their family for money. Victor stood, rage finally breaking through the shock. They have a future. Here. With me. A future in a middle-class house with a father who spends 60 hours a week restoring other people's buildings? Shane can give them the world. I gave them a home. Love. That used to mean something to you. Love doesn't pay for Harvard. Love doesn't open doors. He didn't know this woman. Maybe he never had. Jasmine and Luke hadn't moved from where they stood in the foyer, watching their parents' marriage disintegrate. Kids, Victor said, go upstairs. Please. Dad, Jasmine started. Please. They went. Victor heard Luke's door close, then Jasmine's. I want you out, Victor said to Miranda. Tonight. This is my house too. I don't care. Pack a bag. Go to Shane's mansion. But I want you gone. The lawyers said. Miranda. Victor's voice was ice. I have built a career on finding structural weaknesses. On seeing what's hidden. You just declared war on me in front of our children. You picked your side. Now live with it. Get out of my house before I do something we'll both regret. For the first time, Miranda looked uncertain. Maybe she saw something in his eyes, some line she'd finally pushed him across. "This isn't over," she said. "You're right. It's just beginning. Now get out." She left, packed a bag, called a cab, walked out the red door Victor had refinished for their 10th anniversary. He watched her go, watched the cab disappear down the street. Then he went to his study, closed the door, and opened the manila envelope from Dr. Goodman. The genetic results stared up at him. Scientific proof that everything he believed about his life was fiction. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is just the beginning. You're going to lose everything, just like I did. Enjoy watching your perfect life crumble. Shane." Victor read it twice. Then he opened his laptop. He'd spent 20 years finding the truth in buildings, exposing what people wanted to hide. Now he'd apply those same skills to finding the truth in his life. Shane Peters thought he'd won. Miranda thought she'd secured the twins' future. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Victor opened a search engine and typed in Shane's name. Time to learn everything about the man who wanted to destroy his family. Time to find the weaknesses, the hidden damage, the rot beneath the fresh paint. By the time Victor closed his laptop 3 hours later, the sun had set. He'd learned that Shane Peters had inherited his fortune from his uncle 3 months ago. That Shane had a gambling problem. That he'd been married twice, both marriages ending badly. That he had 2 DUIs, 1 assault charge that had been dropped, and a reputation in his hometown of Hartford for being reckless with money. This was the man who wanted his children. This was the man Miranda thought was better than him. Victor pulled out a notebook, started writing. Plans, strategies, possibilities. Shane and Miranda wanted to play in court? Fine, they'd play in court. But Victor had learned long ago that battles were won before the first shot was fired. They were won in the preparation, the planning, the understanding of your enemy's weaknesses. And Victor Vincent was very, very good at finding weaknesses. The law offices of Gerald Lindsay occupied the 12th floor of a glass tower in downtown White Plains. Victor sat in the waiting room, the letter from Shane's lawyers heavy in his jacket pocket. Temporary custody hearing scheduled for Friday. For days away. Across from him sat Dale Reed, the private investigator Victor had hired 2 days ago. Dale was 50-something, gray-haired, with the patient eyes of a man who'd seen everything twice. "You sure about this?" Dale asked quietly. "Once we start digging, we can't undig." "I'm sure." Victor had spent 2 sleepless nights in his house, listening to Jasmine cry in her room, hearing Luke punch his walls in rage. 2 nights of his children falling apart, while Miranda sent lawyers with more papers, more threats, more demands. The office door opened. Gerald Lindsay appeared, all polished suit and practiced sympathy. "Mr. Vincent, thank you for coming. If you'll follow me." The conference room was designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A table that could seat 20. Shane Peters at one end, Miranda beside him, Gerald Lindsay and another lawyer Victor didn't recognize flanking them like guards. "Where are your attorneys?" Gerald asked. "Don't need them for this meeting." Shane laughed. "Representing yourself? This'll be fun to watch." Victor sat across from them. Dale stood by the door, camera in hand. "You're being recorded. Just so we're clear." "That's," Gerald started. "Legal in New York with one-party consent. I'm the consenting party." Victor pulled out his own recording device, set it on the table. "Shall we begin?" Shane leaned back in his chair, confident. He wore an expensive suit, gold watch, designer everything. Money dripped from him like cologne. "Here's what's going to happen," Shane said. "You're going to sign over all parental rights. The twins are going to live with me. You'll get visitation if you're nice. Maybe every other weekend. And Miranda and I are going to raise our children the way they deserve." "Your children," Victor repeated. "That's interesting phrasing. Tell me, Shane, when did you first learn about Jasmine and Luke?" 3 months ago, when I had Miranda tracked down. "And in those 3 months, how many times did you visit them?" Shane's jaw tightened. "I'm here now. That's not an answer. How many times did you attend Luke's football games? Jasmine's art shows? How many parent-teacher conferences? School plays? Doctor appointments?" "You're deflecting. I'm establishing a pattern. You learned 3 months ago that you had children, and you did nothing except hire lawyers and threaten to take them from the only father they've ever known. Because you lied to them." Shane slammed his hand on the table. "You let them think you were their father when you knew you weren't." "I didn't know. Not until a week ago. But you did. For 3 months. And you didn't try to build a relationship. You went straight to legal action." Victor looked at Miranda. With her help, Miranda wouldn't meet his eyes. The court will see it for what it is, Gerald Lindsay interjected. A biological father claiming his rightful place in his children's lives. Will they? Victor pulled a folder from his bag. Dale, why don't you share what you found? Dale stepped forward, laid out photos on the conference table. Shane at a casino in Atlantic City, dated 2 weeks ago. Shane leaving a bar in Hartford, obviously drunk, arm around a blonde woman who wasn't Miranda. Shane in what looked like an argument with another man outside a restaurant. That's, Shane started. Let's talk about your inheritance, Victor continued. 40 million from your uncle Thomas Peters. How much of it is left? That's none of your business. Dale. The investigator pulled out more documents. As of yesterday, Shane Peters has approximately 32 million left. He's lost 8 million in 3 months. 4 million in bad investments, 2 million in gambling debts, and 2 million supporting a lifestyle he can't actually afford long-term. Shane's face had gone red. You had me investigated? You wanted my children. I wanted to know who you were. Turns out you're a 43-year-old trust fund baby with substance abuse issues and a spending problem. That sound about right. Gerald, shut this down, Shane growled. Mr. Vincent, these accusations aren't accusations. They're facts. Public records, court documents, financial filings. All admissible. Victor looked at Shane. You want to go to court? Let's go to court. Let's have a judge review your 2 failed marriages. Your DUIs. Your assault charge. Your gambling addiction. Let's have them see that you're not interested in being a father. You're interested in using my children to look respectable while you burn through your uncle's money. You son of a... And Miranda. Victor turned to his wife. Let's talk about fraud. You knowingly put another man's name on a birth certificate. You accepted 15 years of child support, health insurance, education expenses. That's a crime in New York. Want me to press charges? Miranda went pale. Victor, you wouldn't. Try me. Is that a threat? Gerald Lindsay demanded. It's a promise. You want to take my children? I'll destroy you both. Legally, financially, socially. I'll dig up every piece of dirt, every bad decision, every skeleton in your closets, and I'll bury you with it. Shane stood, leaned across the table. You think you scare me? I've got money. I've got lawyers. I've got rights. You've got nothing, Victor said quietly. You've got DNA and delusions. But those kids upstairs, they don't know you. They don't want you. And no court in the world will force them to live with a stranger who only wants them for appearances. They're 15, Gerald said. Their preference matters, but it's not determinative. Biology. We'll lose to 15 years of demonstrated paternity. Want to bet on it? Victor stood. Here's my counteroffer. You walk away. Now. Both of you. Drop the custody suit. Miranda, you can have a divorce, but you get nothing. No assets, no alimony, nothing. You made your choice. Live with it. You're insane, Shane said. I'm motivated. There's a difference. Victor gathered his papers. You have until Friday's hearing to decide. Walk away clean, or I make sure the judge sees everything Dale found. And believe me, he found a lot more than what's in this folder. Victor walked to the door, Dale following. He paused, looked back. One more thing. Those text messages you've been sending me, Shane? The threatening ones? I forwarded them all to my lawyer, along with the ones you sent to Jasmine and Luke. Shane's face went white. I never. You contacted my 15-year-old daughter on Instagram 3 days ago. Told her she'd regret choosing the wrong father. That's harassment of a minor. Want me to add that to the list? Silence. Didn't think so. See you in court. Outside, in the elevator, Dale let out a low whistle. That was risky. You showed your hand. No, Victor said. I showed them I have a hand. They don't know what else I'm holding. Do you have anything else? Not yet, but I will. Victor checked his phone. A message from Jasmine. Dad, some reporter called asking about the custody case. What do I tell them? Reporter. Victor smiled grimly. Shane must have leaked the story, trying to get public sympathy for the biological father fighting for his rights. That had been a mistake. Victor texted back. Tell them the truth. That you've never met Shane Peters, that you don't want to live with him, and that I'm the only father you've ever known. Can you do that? Jasmine, yes. Luke and I already talked about it. We're on your side, Dad. Always. The elevator reached the lobby. Victor stepped out into the afternoon sun, already planning his next move. Shane wanted a PR war. Victor would give him one. But first, he needed to know more. The inheritance, the money, The timing, something didn't add up. Shane gets $40 million and immediately tracks down children he'd never shown interest in before? No, there was more to this. Dale, Victor said, I need you to dig deeper into the inheritance. Who was Thomas Peters? Why did he leave everything to Shane? And more importantly, were there conditions? Dale nodded, taking notes. You think the kids are part of the inheritance requirement? I think Shane Peters is desperate. And desperate men make mistakes. Victor headed to his truck. Find out what he's desperate for. Where are you going? To talk to someone who knew Thomas Peters. Shane's uncle didn't leave him $40 million out of kindness. There's always a reason for that kind of money. I need to know what it is. Victor drove to Hartford, Connecticut. 2 hours in traffic, listening to true crime podcasts and planning. Thomas Peters had died 4 months ago. The obituary listed him as a successful real estate developer, unmarried, no children, survived by his nephew Shane Peters. The funeral home director was hesitant at first, but Victor had learned long ago that sincerity and a firm handshake opened doors. I'm trying to understand who my children's biological father really is, Victor explained. Thomas Peters raised Shane. I need to know what kind of man Thomas was. The director, an older woman named Eunice Cowan, softened. Thomas was complicated. Brilliant businessman, but hard. Very hard on Shane. How so? Shane was Thomas's only family after Shane's parents died in a car crash. Shane was 8. Thomas took him in, raised him, but... She hesitated. Thomas didn't believe in giving things away. He made Shane earn everything. Maybe too much. There were rumors Shane and Thomas had a falling out about 10 years ago. Didn't speak for years. Then why leave Shane everything? The will had conditions. Shane had to be married with children to inherit. If he wasn't, the money went to charity. Eunice leaned closer. Between you and me, Shane showed up at the funeral with a woman he claimed was his fiancée. Different woman than the one he'd been seen with a month before. I don't think Thomas's conditions were about Shane settling down. I think Thomas was testing him from the grave. Married with children. The pieces fell into place. Shane needed to prove he was married with children to keep the inheritance. That's why he'd tracked down Miranda. That's why he wanted custody. Without the twins, Shane would lose everything. Victor thanked Eunice and drove back to New York, mind racing. This wasn't about family. This was about greed. Shane needed those children on paper to satisfy the will's conditions, which meant Victor had leverage. He called Dale from the road. I need you to get a copy of Thomas Peters' will. Full text, all conditions. Already on it. I made some calls after our conversation. Should have it by morning. Good. And Dale? Find out who Shane's been spending time with in Hartford. I want to know if he's actually married to Miranda or if that's another lie. You think he's faking the marriage? I think Shane Peters has built his entire life on lies. Time to prove it. Back home, Victor found Jasmine and Luke in the kitchen, making dinner. Spaghetti, from the smell of it. Luke's specialty. Hey, Dad, Luke said, not turning from the stove. We thought you might be hungry. Starving. Victor sat at the island, watched his kids move around the kitchen with practiced ease. How many nights had they done this? How many meals together? Did you meet with them? Jasmine asked quietly. I did. And I'm going to win. But I need you both to be strong a little longer. Can you do that? Luke turned, wooden spoon in hand. Dad, I know biology says that guy is our father. But he's not. You are. And we're going to tell the judge that. Me too, Jasmine added. We already talked to some reporters. Told them the truth. That Shane Peters is a stranger trying to buy us. Victor's heart swelled. You talked to reporters? They called, Luke said with a shrug. Some guy from the New York Times. We figured honesty was the best policy. That's what you always taught us. That's what your grandfather taught me, Victor said quietly. He looked at Hugh's watch on his wrist. He used to say that a man's character is built in how he handles the hardest moments. Then we'll handle this, Jasmine said fiercely. Together. They ate dinner. Talked about school, about normal things, about anything except the hearing on Friday. For an hour, they were a family again. After the twins went to bed, Victor sat in his study and read the will Dale had emailed over. Thomas Peters had been specific. My nephew Shane Peters shall inherit my entire estate upon the condition that he is legally married and has provided for the care of at least one biological child. This condition must be satisfied within 6 months of my death. Failure to meet this condition will result in the estate being transferred to the Connecticut Children's Foundation. 6 months. Thomas had died 4 months ago. Shane had 2 months left to prove he had children or lose everything. That's why the rush. That's why the lawyers and the threats. Shane was running out of time. Victor opened his laptop and started writing. Not a legal brief. Not a defense. A strategy. Shane thought he was playing chess. Victor was about to show him he'd been playing checkers. By 2 a.m., Victor had a plan. It was risky. Possibly illegal. Definitely the kind of thing that would make his father shake his head. But Hugh Vincent had also taught him that sometimes the only way to rebuild was to tear down the structure completely and start fresh. Shane Peters's life was about to be demolished. Friday arrived like a sentence. Victor dressed in his best suit, the charcoal one he'd worn to his father's funeral. Jasmine and Luke wore matching anxious expressions at breakfast. Remember, Victor said, tell the truth. That's all the judge wants to hear. The courthouse was packed. News cameras outside. Reporters shouting questions. Victor shepherded the twins through the crowd, Dale running interference. Inside, the courtroom was smaller than Victor expected. Judge Doris Kirby presided, a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Shane sat with Gerald Lindsay and Miranda. Shane wore a suit that probably cost more than Victor's truck. Miranda looked nervous. The hearing began. Gerald presented the paternity tests, the DNA evidence, Shane's claim to biological parenthood. It was damning in its simplicity. Biology didn't lie. Then it was Victor's turn. His lawyer, Antonio Simon, was a family law specialist with 30 years' experience. He stood, adjusted his glasses, and began methodically shredding Shane's case. Your Honor, while Mr. Peters may be the biological father, he has demonstrated no interest in actual parenthood. He has not contacted these children in 15 years. He has not provided support, emotional or financial. He has not been present for any milestone, achievement, or difficulty in their lives. Antonio presented the photos Dale had gathered. Shane gambling. Shane drinking. Shane in arguments. Furthermore, Mr. Peters's sudden interest in these children corresponds directly to the conditions of his uncle's will. Antonio submitted Thomas Peters's will into evidence. Without legal custody of biological children, Mr. Peters stands to lose a $40 million inheritance. This is not about fatherhood. This is about greed. Gerald objected. Judge Kirby overruled him. Your Honor, Antonio continued, we'd like to call Jasmine Vincent to the stand. Victor watched his daughter. Not his daughter, his mind screamed again, not your blood, walk to the witness stand. She looked small in the wooden chair, young. But when she spoke, her voice was steady. Miss Vincent, do you know Shane Peters? Antonio asked. No, sir. I met him for the first time last week. Has he ever contacted you before that? He sent me some messages on Instagram a few days ago. Threatening ones. Gerald objected. Judge Kirby asked to see the messages. Jasmine pulled them up on her phone, handed it to the bailiff. Victor watched Shane's face go pale as the judge read. Mr. Peters, Judge Kirby said, her voice ice. Did you tell a 15-year-old girl that she would regret choosing the wrong father? It was taken out of context. It's a yes or no question. Yes, but we'll address this later. Continue, Mr. Simon. Antonio asked Jasmine about her childhood, her relationship with Victor. She talked about renovation projects, about learning to read blueprints, about the Saturday mornings they spent at job sites. Who taught you to drive? Antonio asked. My dad. Victor Vincent. Who attended your art shows? My dad. Who sat with you when you were scared about starting high school? My dad. Jasmine looked directly at Victor. He's the only father I've ever known. Biology doesn't change that. Shane's lawyer tried to cross-examine, but Jasmine held firm. She didn't want to know Shane. She didn't want to live with him. She wanted to go home with her dad. Luke's testimony was similar. Strong, clear, devastating to Shane's case. Then Miranda took the stand. Gerald questioned her about the affair, the pregnancy, her reasons for keeping the twins' paternity secret. I thought they were Victor's, Miranda said. I really believed it until Shane had them tested. And when you learned the truth? I wanted what was best for them. Shane can provide opportunities. Like a father with 2 DUIs? Antonio cut in when his turn came. Like a man with a gambling addiction who's lost $8 million in 3 months? Like someone who threatens children on social media? Objection, Gerald shouted. Sustained, Judge Kirby said, but her expression suggested she'd heard enough. The hearing lasted 6 hours. Both sides presented evidence, arguments, Character witnesses. Victor's colleagues from work testified to his character. Shane's ex-wives testified to his. It wasn't pretty. Finally, Judge Kirby called for closing statements. Your Honor, Gerald said, biology is not arbitrary. The law recognizes parental rights. Shane Peters has a legal claim to these children. Biology isn't arbitrary, Antonio agreed. But fatherhood is more than genetics. Victor Vincent has been these children's father for 15 years. He has fulfilled every obligation, every responsibility. Shane Peters wants to upend their lives for money. The court should not reward that. Judge Kirby reviewed her notes. The courtroom was silent. I'm going to take this under advisement, she finally said. I'll issue a ruling within 2 weeks. In the meantime, temporary custody remains with Mr. Vincent. The children will stay in their current home and school. Mr. Peters, you are prohibited from contacting Jasmine or Luke directly. Any communication goes through attorneys. Are we clear? Shane looked ready to explode, but Gerald put a hand on his arm. Yes, Your Honor, Gerald said. We're adjourned. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Victor kept the twins close, let Antonio handle the press. They were halfway to the truck when Shane appeared, flanked by his lawyers. This isn't over, Shane hissed. You're right, Victor said quietly. It's just getting started. That night, Victor's phone rang. An unknown number. He answered. Mr. Vincent? This is Christina Klein. I'm a friend of Miranda's. We need to talk. About what? About what she and Shane are really planning. Can we meet? Tomorrow morning? It's important. Victor hesitated. Could be a trap. Could be Shane trying to gather evidence against him. Why should I trust you? Because I'm the one who told Miranda this was a mistake. Because I know things about Shane that you need to know. Please, Mr. Vincent. I'm trying to help. They met at a coffee shop in downtown Westchester. Christina Klein was Miranda's age, blonde, nervous. She kept looking over her shoulder like she expected Shane to appear. Miranda is my best friend, Christina said. Has been since college. She called me when Shane tracked her down. She was terrified. She didn't look terrified in court. Because Shane threatened her. He told her if she didn't help him get custody, he'd make sure she got nothing. Not from the inheritance. Not from you. Nothing. Keep talking. Christina pulled out her phone, showed Victor text messages. Shane to Miranda. Play along, or you'll regret it. Those kids are my ticket. You help me, or I bury you. Miranda thought she could control him, Christina said. Thought she could use the situation to get money for the twins' college, then send him away. But Shane isn't interested in sharing. He wants full custody. He wants the kids to himself. Why? The will. Thomas Peters' will has a clause. If Shane has legal custody of biological children, he gets the full inheritance. But there's more. If anything happens to Shane, the children inherit everything as his legal heirs. Victor's blood ran cold. What are you saying? I'm saying Shane has a $60 million life insurance policy. I'm saying he's told Miranda he's not interested in being a dad long-term. I'm saying once he has custody, once the inheritance is secure. She trailed off. You think he'd hurt them? I think he'd send them away. Boarding school in Europe. Anywhere far enough that they wouldn't interfere with his life. And if they refused? Christina's voice dropped. Shane's uncle had a heart attack, Victor. Sudden, unexpected. Thomas was only 65 and healthy. The autopsy came back clean, but there were rumors. What kind of rumors? That Shane might have helped things along. Nothing proven. Nothing investigated. But Thomas changed his will 2 weeks before he died, added all those conditions. Like he knew Shane couldn't be trusted and wanted to protect any grandchildren from beyond the grave. Victor sat back. You're saying Shane murdered his uncle for the inheritance. I'm saying it's possible. I'm saying you need to be careful. Shane is dangerous when he doesn't get what he wants. Why are you telling me this? Because Miranda is in over her head. Because those kids don't deserve this. And because... Christina pulled out another document. Because I work in estate law. I know how to read wills. And Thomas Peters' will has a loophole. What kind of loophole? The will says Shane needs to have provided for the care of at least one biological child. Not custody. Not guardianship. Just proof he's supporting a biological child. Christina leaned forward. If you let Shane provide child support, voluntarily, he'd meet the will's conditions. He'd get the money. And he'd have no legal basis to pursue custody. It was genius. And it was risky. He'd never agreed to that. He would if he thought it was his only option. The judge is going to rule against him, Victor. You know it. I know it. Shane probably knows it. But if you offer him a way out, a way to get the inheritance without the messy court battle, he might take it. Or he might see it as weakness and push harder. That's the risk. Christina stood. I've told you what I know. What you do with it is up to you. But Victor? Be careful. Shane Peters doesn't lose gracefully. She left. Victor sat in the coffee shop, mind racing. A loophole. A way to end this without dragging the twins through more court battles. But it meant Shane would get the money. It meant letting him win, in a way. Victor pulled out his phone, called Antonio. I need to understand something about wills and inheritance conditions. By the time Victor got home, he had a plan. It wasn't the ending Shane wanted. It wasn't the ending Miranda wanted. But it was an ending. And sometimes, that's all you could hope for. 2 weeks later, Judge Kirby issued her ruling. Victor sat in the courtroom with Jasmine and Luke, listening as the judge systematically dismantled Shane's case. While Mr. Peters is the biological father, he has demonstrated neither the capacity nor the genuine interest in parenting these children. His motivations appear to be financial rather than paternal. Furthermore, his behavior toward the minors, specifically the threatening messages sent to Jasmine Vincent, demonstrates poor judgment and a concerning pattern. Shane's face was red, his fists clenched. Custody remains with Victor Vincent. Mr. Peters is granted supervised visitation rights, 2 hours per month, to be scheduled through family court services. He is also ordered to pay child support of $5,000 per month per child until they reach 18 or graduate college, whichever comes later. That's bullshit. Shane exploded. They're my kids. I have rights. Mr. Peters, you will control yourself in my courtroom, or I will hold you in contempt. Judge Kirby's voice could have frozen hell. Your rights as a biological parent are acknowledged. Your responsibilities are also acknowledged. You will pay support. You will behave appropriately during visitation. Or you will find yourself in violation of a court order. Am I clear? Shane looked ready to argue, but Gerald put a hand on his shoulder, whispered something. Yes, Your Honor, Shane ground out. As for the divorce proceedings between Mr. and Mrs. Vincent, given the fraud involved in the children's paternity, Mrs. Vincent is not entitled to marital assets beyond what was agreed upon in their prenuptial agreement. Mr. Vincent has agreed not to press criminal charges for birth certificate fraud in exchange for a clean break. This court finds that arrangement fair. Miranda closed her eyes. She'd get nothing. Exactly what Victor had promised. We're adjourned. Outside, Antonio shook Victor's hand. That went better than I expected. Shane got what he needed, Victor said. He's supporting biological children. The will's conditions are met. How did you know he'd accept it? Because I gave him a choice. Fight me and lose everything. Or take the win and walk away with 40 million. Smart. But Victor knew it wasn't over. Shane had the money, but he'd lost the control he'd wanted. Men like Shane didn't forget that kind of loss. 3 days later, Victor's suspicions were confirmed. Dale called with news. Shane Peters filed for bankruptcy protection. What? He just inherited. And lost it. All of it. Gambling debts, bad investments, and some very angry people in Hartford who want their money back. The inheritance is being seized to pay creditors. Victor almost laughed. How much is left? After the bankruptcy? Maybe $1 million. Maybe. And that's if he's lucky. Shane had gotten exactly what he wanted. The inheritance, and it had destroyed him. The universe had a sense of irony. There's more, Dale continued. Miranda filed a lawsuit against Shane. Claims he coerced her into the custody battle. She's trying to distance herself. Will it work? Doubtful. But it'll keep lawyers employed for years. Victor hung up, looked at his calendar. Saturday. He'd promised the twins they'd work on the old barn at his current project site. Teach them about post and beam construction. His phone buzzed. A text from Shane. You think you won. You didn't. This isn't over. Victor deleted it. Blocked the number. Shane could threaten all he wanted from his bankruptcy lawyer's office. The twins were waiting when Victor got home. Luke had his tool belt on. Jasmine had her camera. She'd been documenting renovation projects for her art portfolio. Ready? Victor asked. Always, Luke said. They drove to the site, an 18th century barn in Dutchess County that was being converted into a community center. The structure was sound, but needed work. Perfect for teaching. Victor showed them how to read the original builder's marks, how to understand the joinery. Jasmine took photos. Luke asked questions about load distribution. Dad, Jasmine said during lunch break, Are you okay? With everything? I will be. We know you're not our biological father, Luke added quietly. The DNA tests proved it. But you're still our dad. That doesn't change. Victor looked at his children, because that's what they were, DNA be damned, and felt something settle in his chest. You're right, he said. It doesn't change. You're mine. You'll always be mine. Even though, Mom, your mother made mistakes. Big ones. But you two? You're not mistakes. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. They worked until sunset, then drove home listening to Luke's terrible taste in music. Normal. Ordinary. Perfect. At home, Victor found an envelope on his doorstep. No return address. Inside, a USB drive and a note. You should see this. CK. Christina. Victor plugged the drive into his laptop. Video files. Security footage from a parking garage in Hartford. Thomas Peters getting into his car. Stumbling, clutching his chest. Falling. And in the corner of the frame, partially obscured, a man watching. Waiting. The timestamp showed 2 weeks before Thomas's death. The man in the shadows turned slightly, face catching the camera. Shane Peters. Victor's hands shook as he watched Thomas collapse. Watched Shane make no move to help. Watched him walk away. Not murder. Not technically. But letting a man die when you could save him? That was something else. There was more on the drive. Financial records showing Shane had been slowly poisoning Thomas's medication. Small doses of beta blockers that would cause heart stress. Nothing immediately fatal. Nothing traceable after the fact. Except Christina had traced it. Victor closed the laptop. He could go to the police. Have Shane arrested for murder. Or, he thought about it for 3 days. Thought about justice and revenge and what his father would have wanted. Hugh Vincent had taught him that sometimes the best revenge was letting someone destroy themselves. Shane was bankrupt, desperate, facing creditors who didn't care about biology or blood. He'd gotten his inheritance and lost it. He'd wanted Victor's family and destroyed his own in the process. That seemed like punishment enough. Victor copied the files to a secure server, encrypted them. Insurance, in case Shane ever came back. Then he put the drive in his safe. 3 months later, Miranda called. Victor? I need to ask you something. What? Shane's gone. Left town. Left his debts. Nobody knows where he is. And you're calling me because? Because I wanted you to know I'm sorry. For all of it. I was greedy and stupid, and I hurt people who didn't deserve it. Yes, you did. The twins won't talk to me. I've tried to reach out, but they're angry, Miranda. Give them time. Maybe they'll forgive you. Maybe they won't. But that's their choice now. She was quiet for a moment. Are they okay? They're perfect. Growing up strong and smart and kind. Everything you should have wanted for them. I didn't want that. I just went about it the wrong way. You went about it the criminal way. There's a difference. Miranda hung up. Victor never heard from her again. 6 months after the custody hearing, Victor stood in his father's old workshop. He'd inherited it when Hugh died, hadn't been able to face cleaning it out until now. The twins were with him, sorting through tools and memories. Grandpa had a lot of stuff, Luke said, holding up an ancient level. He never threw anything away. Said you never knew when you'd need something. Jasmine found a box of photographs. Pictures of Hugh and Victor working on projects. Victor as a kid, learning to swing a hammer. Hugh teaching him to read blueprints. You look like him, Jasmine said. People always said that. I mean in the way you work. The way you teach us things. Like he taught you. Victor looked at the photo. His father's hand on his shoulder. Both of them grinning at the camera, covered in sawdust and pride. That's what matters, Victor said quietly. Not the blood. The time. The lessons. The love. That's what makes someone a father. Or a daughter, Jasmine added. Or a son. We might not share your DNA, Dad, but we're yours. In all the ways that count. Luke nodded. Shane's got nothing. No kids, no money, no life. He had a chance to know us, and he blew it. His loss. They finished sorting the workshop as the sun set. On the drive home, Jasmine asked, Dad, whatever happened to Shane? I heard he disappeared. I heard that too. Do you care? Victor thought about the video files in his safe. About Shane watching his uncle die. About the threats and the lies and the greed. No, he said honestly. I don't. Good. Neither do we. That night, after the twins went to bed, Victor sat in his study and pulled up the case files. Everything was resolved. The custody battle won. The divorce finalized. Miranda had moved to California, started over with nothing. Shane Peters had vanished into bankruptcy and disgrace, his inheritance gone, his creditors hunting him. And Victor had his children, his home, his life. He looked at Hugh's watch on his wrist. 10:47 p.m. Late. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I know what you did. What you found. We should talk. SB. Shane. Still out there. Still dangerous. Victor deleted the message, blocked the number. If Shane wanted to talk, he could do it through lawyers. If he wanted to threaten, Victor had enough evidence to bury him. But mostly, Victor just wanted to move on. He closed his laptop, turned off the lights, went upstairs. Checked on Jasmine, asleep with her sketchbook. Checked on Luke, snoring softly, football playbook on his chest. His children, his family. Everything else was just noise. A year later, Victor stood at the opening of his latest project, a historic courthouse converted into a community arts center. The building had been condemned when he'd taken the job, deemed unsalvageable. But Victor didn't believe in unsalvageable, just unexamined. He'd spent 18 months finding the good bones beneath the decay, reinforcing what could be saved, rebuilding what couldn't. Now the building stood proud, every original detail preserved, every modern necessity integrated seamlessly. Jasmine's artwork hung in the main gallery, photographs of the restoration process, before and after shots that told the building's story. Luke had helped with the physical work, learning carpentry and masonry alongside the crew. Mr. Vincent? A woman approached. Reporter, from her notebook and recorder. Can I ask you about the project? Of course. This building was declared a loss. Multiple firms said it should be demolished. Why did you think you could save it? Victor looked at the soaring ceiling, the original timber beams he'd painstakingly restored. Because something's only a loss if you give up on it. This building had good bones. It just needed someone willing to dig deep enough to find them. That's a nice metaphor. It's not a metaphor. It's a fact. The reporter scribbled notes. I understand you had some personal challenges during this project. The custody battle with Shane Peters? Victor stiffened. That's resolved. Yes, but it must have been difficult. Working on this project while fighting for your children. It was. But that's what you do when something matters. You show up. You do the work. You don't give up. And Shane Peters? Any comment on his current situation? I don't think about Shane Peters. I have better things to focus on. The reporter left. Victor found the twins in the photography gallery, standing in front of Jasmine's largest piece. A triptych showing the courthouse in decay, mid-restoration, and finally complete. They turned out good, Luke said. Thanks to you modeling for the during shots, Jasmine teased. That action shot of you carrying the beam really sold the story. Happy to help. Victor put an arm around each of them. 16 now, almost adults. Jasmine was applying to architecture programs. Luke was being recruited for college football. His children. His legacy. Not in blood, but in everything that mattered more. Dad, Jasmine said. There's someone here who wants to meet you. An elderly man approached, leaning on a cane. He looked familiar, but Victor couldn't place him. Mr. Vincent? I'm Hugh Werner. I was friends with your father, Hugh Vincent. We served in the Navy together. I remember. Dad talked about you. You were at the funeral. I was. And I wanted to thank you for this project. He would be proud. Thank you. I also wanted to tell you something. Hugh Werner glanced at the twins. Your father knew. Knew what? About the twins. About their paternity. He'd seen Shane Peters visiting Miranda, years ago. He had suspicions. Victor's world tilted. He never said anything. He told me once, near the end, that it didn't matter. That you'd raised those kids, loved them, been their father. He said blood was important, but being a father was about showing up every day. Making the choice to love them, even when it was hard. Tears stung Victor's eyes. He said that. He did. And he said you were the best father he'd ever seen, because you chose it. Every single day, you chose to be their dad. That made you more of a father than biology ever could. Hugh Werner shook Victor's hand, nodded to the twins, and walked away. Victor stood in the gallery, surrounded by photographs of destruction and rebirth, and understood what his father had known all along. Fatherhood wasn't inherited. It was built, day by day, choice by choice, moment by moment. He built a family the same way he built buildings, with careful attention to foundation, with patience for the process, with refusal to accept that anything worth saving was ever truly lost. Dad, Jasmine's voice pulled him back. You okay? Yeah, princess. I'm perfect. Want to get out of here? Luke and I thought we could grab dinner, celebrate. Absolutely. They left the gallery, the opening reception, the reporters and crowds. Drove to the diner where they'd celebrated every major milestone since the twins were small. Ordered the same meals they always ordered. Talked and laughed and argued about music and politics and whether pineapple belonged on pizza. Normal. Ordinary. Perfect. Victor's phone buzzed. Another blocked number. He didn't check it. Whatever Shane Peters wanted, revenge, redemption, more threats, it didn't matter anymore. Victor had won. Not in court. Not through revenge. He'd won by showing up. By choosing to be a father when it would have been easier to walk away. By loving his children when the truth could have destroyed everything. That was the victory Shane would never understand. And that made it sweeter than any revenge Victor could have planned. Later that night, alone in his study, Victor finally checked the message. I'm sorry. For everything. You're a better man than I'll ever be. Take care of them. SB. Victor read it twice, then deleted it. He pulled out the USB drive Christina had given him, the one with evidence of Shane's crimes. He'd kept it as insurance, as protection. Now it just felt like weight he didn't need to carry. Victor destroyed the drive, wiped the backup files from his server. Let the evidence disappear. Not because Shane deserved mercy, but because holding on to it meant holding on to the past. And Victor was building a future. He closed his laptop, turned off the lights, and went upstairs to sleep. Tomorrow, he'd start planning the next project. A renovation of the old theater downtown. Jasmine wanted to document it for her portfolio. Luke wanted to learn about structural engineering. They'd work together, the three of them, building something beautiful from something broken. The way they always had. The way they always would. Because that's what family did. What real fathers taught their children. Not how to win, but how to rebuild. How to find strength in the breaking. How to choose love over biology. Presence over promises. Action over words. Victor Vincent had learned that lesson from his father. Now he was passing it on to his children. And that legacy, that choice, made every day for 16 years, was worth more than any DNA test could ever prove or disprove. It was everything. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.